Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So we are gonna hope that my battery lasts long enough for this video. If not, then I'll redo it. Not a big deal. Um, anyway, we are going to talk about the word surrender today. Surrender, yeah. I have had this word come up for me a few times over the past few weeks, and I don't know. I felt called to talk about it today, so here we go. So, of course, if you're not new to the channel, then you know the first thing I do is look up the word in the dictionary. Because the point is to take these everyday words and see what they mean to us personally, right? See what our subconscious has to say about it. So, the definition of the word surrender is to yield to the power, control, or possession of another upon compulsion or demand. To give up completely or agree to forego, especially in favor of another. To give oneself up into the power of another, especially as a prisoner. To give up oneself over to something, such as an influence. The action of yielding one's person or giving up the possession of something, especially into the power of another. The relinquishment by a patentee of rights or claims under a patent. The delivery of a principal into lawful custody by bail. The voluntary cancellation of the legal liability of an insurance company by the insured and beneficiary for a consideration. The delivery of a fugitive from justice by one government or another. So when I say the word surrender, I guess there's a few different definitions in there, right? So it's like, I guess with pertaining to the law in particular, you could surrender, you surrender to the authorities, to the cops when you are caught doing something wrong, caught breaking the law. That would be a form of surrender, right? So the surrender that I want to kind of focus on today is from the 15th century, and it is the definition, specifically the action of yielding one's person or giving up the possession of something, especially into the power of another. So in my spirituality, we talk about surrendering a lot, right? And it is to give the power or control, I guess, if you will, over to the divine, God, source, spirit, creator, whichever word you want to put in there, and giving basically carte blanche to the divine to intervene on your behalf, to then allow things to just be the way that the divine has planned, and not to fight against, and to enforce your will on the situation or whatever. I feel like I'm not really explaining this correctly, so I'm going to try again using the metaphor of, say, the river. When you fall into the river, or your kayak gets tipped, or your boat gets tipped over, or whatever, right away we're swimming and we're fighting, and we're in this fight, flight, or freeze mode, and we're struggling to breathe, struggling to survive. And if we don't know which way the river is flowing, we can find ourselves paddling against the flow of the river upstream, right? And the more you struggle, and the more you fight, and the more you try to swim upstream, the harder it gets, and you get exhausted. And at some point, you're so tired that if you have the presence of mind to do so, you just lay on your back and rest your muscles and allow yourself to breathe. And it's then that the river will take you wherever you're meant to go. And that, that might be the idiom going with the flow. That might be what that means, or is what that means in some cases. But the act of turning over on your back and to stop paddling and stop swimming and stop struggling and stop fighting that current is actually the form of surrender that I want to talk about today. When you surrender, you've tried everything else, right? You have put every plan that you could think of into place. You have done every action-oriented item that you can think to do to either fix or improve your situation. And in doing that, you have exhausted yourself. Your energy is depleted. I don't want to say your soul, but your motivations are gone. You're feisty. You're I can't think of the word, but your energy. You know, you have all that energy, all of that adrenaline, all of that. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And when you've exhausted that, and you say, you know what, I'm just done. Just done. God, you handle this. I can't do anymore. I can't. I have done everything I can do, and it's either not worked or it's done the opposite of what I wanted to do, or for whatever reason you didn't get the results that you wanted. And when you surrender and you give all that control back to the divine, to God, that's when things can fall into place. So I just had a metaphor I wanted to use, and it just jumped right out of my head. So I guess we'll save that for later. But the other thing I like to do on this channel is to talk about how words are contained within those bigger, more complex, confusing, misunderstood and misused words, to then teach my subconscious a different way of looking at it, right? If you are a criminal, then the word surrender probably is not a word that you want to use very much. If you are a control freak, like me, then surrender is not something that you're good at. And giving up that control and giving up that power, or, you know, perceived control and power, is something that can be very scary, especially when things in the past maybe weren't so great, right? They didn't end well when you didn't have control over things, and when you put that control and power into the hands of someone else. It was maybe used against you. It was maybe you were taken advantage of. Maybe you were hurt in some way. So that act of that surrender can be frightening. It can be something that your subconscious mind wouldn't allow you to do because of the results that came, you know, when you had done it in the past. But the other words that I see within the word surrender are sure, S-U-R-E, and end, E-N-D. Those are the two words that jump out at me. So if I look up the word sure, as in certain, right? It's an adjective marked by or given to feelings of confident certainty. So if you're certain that you want whatever situation it is that you're facing and struggling and fighting against to come to an end, that is the time to surrender, right? You're sure for it to end. I'm just looking up the word end because I don't want to leave anything left undone. So end is the part of an area that lies at the boundary. I never would have put the word boundary in with the word end, so I'm kind of glad I looked that up. A point that marks the extent of something. The point at where something ceases to exist. I like that one. The extreme or last part lengthwise. The terminal unit of something spatial that is marked off by units. Or a player stationed at the extremity of a line or a team, as in football, like a tight end. Cessation of course of action, pursuit, or activity. Death or destruction. The ultimate state, result, issue. Remnant, an outcome worked towards or a purpose. A share in an undertaking, the object by virtue of or for the sake of which an event takes place. So like the means to an end. So if we think about the word end, and it would be, might be the end of a journey, right? If you are driving to the airport, then the airport is the end of that journey, right? It is the goal, if you will. It is the outcome with which you expect to have happen as a result of the actions you have taken. And when we put the word certain in front of that, certain to end, as in surrender. When we are certain that we have done everything we can do, is usually when the human mind will surrender. It's at that point that when all else is lost, right? I could give you 500 idioms of what this means. Oh, and I just thought of the metaphor that was in my head earlier. So surrender. Now, I used to be, those of you that know me personally, I used to be a software developer, a computer geek, if you will. And anyone that has done computer programming or any sort of very intricate, detailed, specific type of instruction in the way of coding will tell you that you reach a point at some point throughout your career, you will have had this happen, and you are trying to solve a problem. You're trying to get a button to work, or you're trying to get a validation to work. You're trying to get something to do something in the computer, and you've told it with all the languages that you know, and you're missing that one piece, right? There's one step that's missing, and you can't put your finger on it, and you're like, okay, well, I've done 1, I've done 2, I've done 3, I've done 5, I've done 6, I've done 7. Where's 4? What is 4? And if you're anything like me, you sat in front of that screen for upwards of 20 to 40 hours, just trying to figure it out. And when you finally walk away from the problem, you walk away from the screen, and you go and you, I don't know, sit outside, you read a book, you take a shower. And for me, it was shower. That's for something like this. It was, and I never learned that lesson. I still would spend the 40 hours in front of the screen, but that doesn't matter. It's when you're sitting in the shower, and you're not really thinking about the problem anymore. And you've just relaxed, right? You've stopped fighting upstream in the current of the river, and you've stopped struggling, and you've turned over on your back, and you're just allowing. And then suddenly the light bulb goes off, right? You've all heard of the light bulb moment. Excuse me. And it's like the answer was there the whole time. It was right in front of you. It's like, oh my God, I was only missing, the word and, or the word if, or the word or, something very, very small that you just, because you were so close to it, because you were so involved in it, you couldn't see straight, right? You had to surrender, needing to figure it out right then and there for the answers to come. And I never really thought of that part of my life when I finally would relent and get up and walk away and take my shower so that the answers would come. I never considered that surrender, but I do now. I see that word as something very different. When I was little, surrender was like raise the white flag, like, you're playing kick the can or something, like, I surrender, blah, 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 right? You're giving up. Well, for me, growing up, you never give up, right? You're not supposed to. You're supposed to just keep trying until you're successful. And it's counterintuitive if you think about it to what the divine, what God wants us to do, which is, why are you struggling, my child? I just picture God sitting there, like, just waiting, like, are you done with your tantrum now? Will you listen long enough for me to tell you the answer? It's like that, it's the divine mother. It is the nurturing. It's the allowing. It's the, I'm just going to sit here until you're done with your tantrum, until you're done struggling. And then when you're ready for me to tell you the answer, I will tell you, and it's that I almost felt as if it were somewhat condescending, the first time I really thought about that. And then I thought, no, it's condescending because I don't feel like I deserve the answer. Like I didn't work hard enough for it, right? That's why I feel like it's condescending, but it's not. It's compassion, and you can use that compassion too much to where it can appear condescending. And I'm going in a completely different direction, so we're going to bring it back to surrender, which is where we're at. Yeah. So growing up, to me, surrendering was not something that you did. It just wasn't. You never give up. You die trying, right? So I have this picture of Thelma and Louise in my head, right? They never surrendered. They just kept going and drove off the cliff to their demise. But that was their choice, and we certainly have the choice to do that. But I think that given different circumstances, of course, it was a movie, and you have to make for entertainment value in that. I think that, had they surrendered, who knows, maybe they don't go to jail. I think what Susan Sarandon's character had done for Gina Davis's character was probably something that would have been defendable in a court of law. But they didn't want the fight, right? So that was their choice. We have the free will to never surrender. We do. God gave us that gift of free will, and we can struggle until the day we die. Or we can surrender. Surrender to the journey, surrender to the path that's yours. You can't change the world. You cannot change the world. But the world can change as a result of the change that you make in your own life. The world changing is the result of an action. It is not the action itself. And it's taken me a really long time to learn that. And I had to surrender to that belief. I had many a time when I just thought, I just want to change the world. I just want to make it a little bit better place for my children and my grandchildren to live in. And the fact of the matter is, you guys, to your children and your grandchildren, you are the world. So if you want to change the world for them, you got to change yourself. There's no other way to do it. You will change their world when you change yourself. And it's the only thing you can change anyway. So just, don't worry about the rest of the world. Don't worry about them. They're going to be there, with or without you. And you have no control over that. So surrender that control, Be sure to end the control that you are trying to exert on others, that you are trying to exert on the world, that you are trying to exert on anyone other than yourself, because the only person at the end of the day that you can control is yourself. So surrender the rest of it. Sorry about that, guys. So as expected, my iPad did in fact lose power. My iPad surrendered. So I'm going to leave it there, actually. I'm going to end the video here. I don't want you guys to take my definition of surrender and use it as your own. I want you to take and think about, what does it mean to you? I want you guys to think for yourselves. That's all this channel is about, guys. That's it. What does it mean? What did it mean growing up? What does your subconscious tell you it means? Take a few minutes, journal about it, think about it, talk about it, write about it. Do some level of thinking that is your own, because that's what this channel is all about, and that's all I want to share with you guys, was my little rabbit hole for the day about surrender. So let me know what you guys think about the word surrender. Put it in the comments below, or my contact information is below. If you choose to reach out on a personal level, that's fine too. And yeah, so that's my word for the day. So don't forget, guys, grow your words and taste your language. Bye for now.